host another event this one within a week, and it's always third or fourth week of the month. Yep. And Tawana, who's going to be our MC tonight, since she's probably not really introducing herself, I'll introduce her. So Tawana is one of my managers at Tentho, which is an accounting firm based here in Miami that I started 5 years ago. This is our office, and she's one of the managers, and she has a great personality and is lots of fun. So we asked her to MC. And then we have Emma, who's my operations manager, and we have Mary, who's one of my staff accountants. So everybody is basically here to support, and then we have everybody joining us online. So that's kind of the rundown. Before we, since we have like another 10 minutes, did anyone want to share anything in particular that they were hoping that we were going to be touching on, or any subjects in particular, or softwares or technology that you guys have used lately that you think is AI and that you're really unsure of? No? I did ask the question earlier, which was how many of you are using ChatGPT, and a lot of people are using ChatGPT on a daily or weekly basis. So that's pretty cool. How many of you suspect that you may have been interacting with AI, but it was so good that you were almost fooled at some point? Do you know what was the platform that you were using? Oh, it's a stock image that's AI generated. Wow. Oh yeah, I think I've heard about this. You can literally like go in and say like, I need a picture of someone working at a desk with a white flower behind him, and it just like generates whatever you ask for. That's scary, crazy.
Yeah, because I can't see.
The variation. The variation. Yes, variation. Yeah.
How do we change the camera?
Yeah.
That's cool. I was telling everyone here before some of you walked in that my telephone is in Italian, so when I order things on Uber Eats, that the delivery people will message me and it will be in Italian, but I'm pretty sure when I'm responding back to them, if I respond in Italian, they're receiving it back in a language that they're talking, that they know, right? So we're basically having a full-on conversation in two different languages, but real-time translation. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, yeah. That's like one really good example of something that is very useful. What about you?
Someone just recorded like last week, or of course we have the SAG-AFTRA strike, so that's a big topic for them, and having AI in their contracts and getting paid, and people AI writing for people, so that's an interesting topic there right well, and also in the art world. So we're seeing AI in a very huge conversation right now. So of course in business it's going to reach there as well. So it's something to look out for. Hopefully we'll not be cloned, but we'll see. That's a whole other topic. But that's pretty much my introduction to the subject, and just something that you kind of look out for and see how it's manifesting in your life right now. So.
Yeah, and someone asked me, someone made a comment when they came in. I mean, it's kind of gotten to the point where you can't even turn around without seeing a custom tailored ad campaign that's specific to all of the things that you've liked or touched online have been pooled, packaged, marketed, or sold to someone who's actually going to turn around and try and sell you something else. So, really interesting. We're going to get into actually all of those topics.
Hello.
Are you ready to begin?
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay, so we'll start on the agenda. The other thing I wanted to we want to go ahead and record this.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's okay with everyone in the room there.
Yeah, that's fine. They're actually not on camera, so go for it.
Okay. All right, I'll go ahead and click record, and then we can start on
Recording in progress.
Okay, wanna tell you?
Welcome, welcome. Thank you for all those introductions. So welcome everyone this evening to our live event for tonight's event, which is Revolutionizing Growth and Unleashing the Power of AI in Business. So I want to welcome everyone that's here, our live audience, as well as the live stream that's happening on Facebook, YouTube, as well as LinkedIn. So I just want to welcome everyone that's here. And let's kind of get started. So pretty much the way the evening's going to go is we have our speakers tonight that are from various fields and are very excited to speak on the topic of AI in business. And I just want to introduce who our speakers are tonight. So you've already met Giuseppe Garcia Salomone, who's the founder of Tentho. We have Catherine Lee. Catherine, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. She is with Startout. We have Sky King, who will discuss Resilient Action Partners, as well as her background with AI. So for the most part, before we start, I just want to remind everyone that this is live streamed and recorded, so please make sure you silence your devices. We want to make sure this is a smooth evening. We want it to be as interactive and fun as possible. Like I said, we did talk about this. This is a very interesting topic, so if you're not sure what AI is and you need more information, you'll definitely get it tonight. So for the most part, the team will introduce more of themselves and about their company, and then I'm going to be facilitating questions that all of our partners here will answer, and then we're going to have a Q&A session at the end. So we want this to be interactive. Here's a quiz, as I mentioned, but we just want to make this as fun as possible and informative, so we can have a great time tonight. So let's kick it off with Giuseppe. I want to give more information about Tentho, your business.
Yeah, thank you everyone online who I haven't spoken to yet, and thank you to everyone who showed up here. I gave everyone here in person in Miami a little bit about Meetup, but just a little bit about myself and about Tentho itself. Tentho is a small business accounting firm. We're nationwide. We're in about 35 different states. We have just over 30 employees. I started it 5 years ago as a side hustle, and it blew up into this huge thing that has taken on a life of its own. But we do everything from day-to-day bookkeeping, bill pay, AR, sales tax payroll, financial statement prep, to CFO services, FP&A, cash flow forecasting, to taxes. So anything that a small business would need, that's what we do. And I've been grinding for 5 years. We actually just made the Inc. 5000 list. We were number 1,277 fastest growing company in the country, which was a big accomplishment. So that's really last week. And then
Okay. All right, thank you. So we're going to go to Sky King. If you can give us a little bit more information on yourself and your business.
All right, can everyone there live hear me okay?
yes,
Everyone online? All right, thumbs up. For those of you who can't see me, I am a cis white woman with bright red hair wearing a black and top. And I am a founder, a behavior scientist, and someone who's been working at the intersection of health and technology and the environment in a number of areas for over 10 years. I work for an organization called Ogilvy, which is a global PR marketing communications firm. We've got around 50,000 employees at this point, been around about 75 years, and have always, in different capacities, tried to stay on the cutting edge of technology. So I serve as part of the group that's focused on, how we can leverage and think about new technologies, including AI as a part of our work. And a lot of what I focus on is, every different groups from early stage founders like Moderna all the way up to large organizations like J&J Innovation or McKesson Life Sciences, or sort of others, and also work with a lot of colleagues that have clients that are intersecting and using AI in different ways. So I think a little bit later we'll talk about a few things. I might have some examples to send you to or show you about seeing that in action, but love working with companies at all stages and serve as a mentor as part of Start Out, and just really enjoy seeing especially small businesses thrive, because that's how I got my start. I'm a founder of a small business, and I grew up in a small business household, so I'm excited to be here and to chat more about this. All right, thank you very much, Sky. Ramika, are you doing an introduction as well?
I think it was Kat that was doing the introduction.
Okay, so I think our next person should be.
Romika is having some technical difficulties going in and out.
Okay.
Can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, you're great, James.
Okay. I'll go ahead and just do a quick intro to start out. We're not going to take very long on this, but as you can see on the presentation that's online, the title, just for the Start Out audience, is Revolutionizing Growth and Unleashing the Power of AI in Business. We have our valued sponsors and supporters for Start Out, the organization. And so I wanted to go ahead and kick that off and just give you a flash on that. And then I will advance the presentation for you guys as needed as you're going through the various pieces of material on here. So my name is James Kinesic. Romika obviously seems to be having some technical difficulties, but we look forward to working with you guys and look forward to the presentation.
Great, thank you. And yeah, this is the first time for those of you who are here in person and for those of you online. This is the first time that Start Out and Tentho are doing a joint event with our live audience here in Miami. And I'm on the programming board of the growth stage at Start Out, and James and Romika are also on the board as well. So that is where this is all coming from.
Excellent. Thank you so much, James. Do we have, is Catherine with us as well?
No, Catherine was not going to be here tonight.
Okay.
So Romika was going to take her introduction, but now since Romika is going on and on back to her stuff. Okay.
Okay, so.
We can go to the first question.
Okay, so we're going to start out with our questions for the event that each of our guests are going to include themselves in their answers. So the first question is going to be, how would you define AI, artificial intelligence, and what are some misconceptions people often have about its role in business? We're going to start off with Giuseppe.
Okay. All right, so there's a lot of misconception about what AI is, in my opinion, but to me, artificial intelligence is a series of algorithms and data analysis, forecasting, and a whole bunch of variations of that that can be used to assist humans in accomplishing tasks, being more efficient. There's a whole probably 20 different directions that I could go in defining AI. But to me, I think the main understanding that I have of AI is that it's not just machines who are going to take over people and some kind of matrix thing or whatever where we're all going to be computers or computer owned, but more so that it's a tool that is going to be used in order to make things more efficient. It's going to allow for us to be more precise in our work, and I'll get more into that. But I would say very broadly, that's my definition. So Sky, I'm going to let you give your probably way more thorough answer.
Well, I think like you, we often sort of characterize artificial intelligence as one of those soup words that can mean different things to different people depending on where you stand. And what you're seeing on the screen is sort of a brief AI. And what I often think about is the way that Alan Turing sort of defined it. He said, if a person couldn't tell within 5 minutes if they were talking to a human or a computer, they were said to not have passed, or they passed the Turing test. So it's, we've evolved from that all the way up to, I'm doing a program through MIT right now focused on AI, and we're sort of segmenting it into 4 areas. We talk about tools, we talk about where we're giving them tasks to do and that sort of thing. And I feel like AI feels the most familiar in that realm. We also talk about AI as assistants, so that's where they're doing more active problem solving. Peers, where we might be working hand in hand on different tasks and outcomes. And then the third one is maybe even as managers. So especially as we start to get into some of the supply chain or even things related to weather AI and forecasting, we might be having machines in a place where they're actually coordinating work and helping us to do things in different ways. But I have to tell you, my favorite way of thinking about it is how we're sort of characterizing it at Ogilvy, which is having AI stand for augmented imagination. So that's a little bit because calling something an intelligence just seems so vague, and in some ways it takes the human element and sort of puts it to the side, or it's not as clear as that's part of that. And I can tell you some stories from a recent AI and art event we went to where people were very nervous about the use of AI for creating videos and images and other things like that. So I like that definition of it as augmented imagination because it centers us in humans being a part of that interaction. And yes, we can do things faster, more efficiently, more effectively. But what AI really enables is that ability for us to kind of reach further. And what are those connections we couldn't otherwise see? Or those epiphanies we might not have if we didn't have it as a tool, as a peer, as a manager and as a and as an assistant. So I'll leave it there. I could talk for ages just about that one word.
Thanks, Sky.
Okay, same question. James, will you be in on the questions as well?
Just Sky.
Just that. Okay. All right, so our next question will be, how has AI evolved over the years to become more accessible and applicable to a wider range of businesses?
Okay, so I'm going to talk about this through the lens of my experience, which is primarily focused in the financial services space, but also in terms of my experience as a business owner and using that to market and grow my business. From the lens of the financial services landscape, when I first was exposed to any form of AI, it was extremely primitive. Probably about 2009 was the first time that I ever interacted with a cloud-based software that had some form of automation that used some sort of smart learning, knowledge, rules that eventually evolved into what we know now as a more robust AI. Although it's come a long way, I definitely think that there's a long way to go. So for those of you who are familiar with the small business accounting and finance space, you can probably guess that what I'm talking about is QuickBooks Online, which when it first hit the market back in the mid-2000s, it was extremely primitive and it was extremely difficult to use. No accountant wanted to use it. No small business owner wanted to use it. It was confusing. Everyone wasn't sure if it was safe because it was in the cloud, and that was scary. And I always found it really difficult to work with. Over time now, QBO has far surpassed what QuickBooks Desktop is able to do, and the reason is because of two primary reasons. Number one is that it's cloud-based and it has open access to a lot of other apps that will support automation, that will support AI, and will allow for anybody who's doing this type of work to be a lot more efficient. So that's number one. Whereas QuickBooks Desktop, it just doesn't have that capability. And then also too, it has the ability over time, because it has access to lots of different data sources, that it's able to learn from what it's doing so regularly. So I would say, if you think about, for example, I'll just give you a brief example in this one, but how many of you here in the audience, or maybe even online, have received a text message from your bank that you had a fraudulent charge on your card because you were on vacation in, Seattle, and you don't normally charge things like a card from Washington State or, some random place, right? I can't tell you how many times I lived in Korea for a year. Like, Chase must have flagged my card like every other week because they're like, why are you in Korea? It's like, well, I live here. I told you that 6 times. Stop frauding my card out. That's all done through AI, right? So there's not like a human on the other end of those transactions that's saying like, oh, this person lives here, like, let me block their card for them. There's actually AI that's looking at what is your normal transaction spend, what's deviating from that norm, and then it's triggering some sort of safety measure or event, and that's the way that the bank is preventing probably a lot of widespread fraud. And then another example is just something more recent. We use tools all the time in order to help us identify problems within financials. It's really difficult when you're an accounting firm, and for me, I have 250 client files or more that I need to go through and I need to review to be able to, and these are all different types of businesses. And we need to be able to quickly point out where the problems. I have a large staff, everybody's doing things a little bit differently. What exactly am I looking for? What are the common mistakes? And we have an app that sits on top of QBO that pulls all the data in, and it recognizes different patterns and it flags high-level risk items. It's saying, no revenue was recorded here for this month. You need to look at why that wasn't there. Or, these transactions came in without a vendor name. Are we sure that they were coded correctly? Why is this one vendor coded in 4 different spots? And it might be legitimate, but it flags you and it lets you know that, hey, you probably want to look here. And it's not going to eliminate the need for me to look and to fix, but it's pointing to where the problems are. So it's a really useful tool for me to be able to get through those files much more quickly, because otherwise I would have to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, and not everyone has the ability to recognize those problems quickly, right? And especially if they're not dealing with that on a daily basis. So it's just one of the tools that we've implemented. So from where it was, and I know that Sky's going to go back a lot further in time, for me in 2009 to now, just in my own space, it's come a really long way. So Sky, I'm gonna hand it off to you now.
Yeah, so we can figure out how far back we want to go. I mean, if you go to the very beginning, we often think a lot about the influence of science fiction in driving ideas. And I think with a lot of the healthcare clients I've worked with, we would say every day when we were working with them, we felt like we were living in a Star Trek movie with the advances and the very, the speed of things, starting in the late 90s all the way up to now. And so yes, there have been sort of things along the way. You kind of see the brief history of AI through 2000 on there. I actually want to start sort of a little bit after that point, which is, just an acknowledgement that AI used to be one of those things that really was reserved for the really large companies. It was viewed as complex, and it was kind of only available to those with deep pockets, right? So then when we got cloud computing, as you were talking about, Amazon, IBM Watson, Amazon Web Services, and others, they've been allowing small and medium-sized companies to actually use AI in their operations. I think we have some great examples there. And that meant people didn't have to invest in the sort of expensive hardware, the software, all those bells and whistles. So we really saw kind of a leap forward, at that point in time. People could, as you were saying, be managing inventory, detecting fraud, sales, marketing, all these different pieces we were seeing, at the beginning of cloud computing. Then right after that, we had pre-built AI models and APIs. And for those of you that some of these terms are new, that's application programming interfaces. And if we shout out any other terms or phrases, put them in the chat or flag them, because I know we can get into our tech jargon on some things. But I think, here, think about things like, embedding Google Maps. You'll see that API. People will use that to do their different services. Or, people will, use Open Weather Map API, or the YouTube and Spotify, they'll embed that as part of what they're doing. And these are all examples where we were able to make things much easier for businesses. You didn't have to develop even your own custom solution, or even, get into cloud computing necessarily. You could leverage some of these APIs as part of, what you were creating and part of the product that you were delivering to clients. So now we're in a new era. We're sort of talking about generative AI and sort of where that leads us. And, I was having a conversation with my mom the other day, who was asking ChatGPT some very specific questions and next steps. And we have people using it to plan parties, as their assistants. And we're seeing a lot of, the breakdown and the democratization of education and access to AI. So it's becoming something that a lot more businesses have access to, and you no longer need to necessarily, be a software engineer or programmer or others to avail yourself of some of these technologies. So I think that's the exciting inflection point that we're at now, is it really does sort of broaden the aperture and sort of expand the imagination for how we might be able to use these tools to improve our businesses. So I'll stop there just a second. I think we can talk about that with even more examples, but I feel like that's a good stuff.
Sounds good. Yeah, I mean, I have hundreds, but we have a lot more questions. So.
And people in the audience and online, I would definitely encourage you to please share your examples as part of the Q&A. And for those that are online, if you have other examples, we'd love to see those too.
For sure.
Thank you, Sky. Okay, so the next question is going to be, in what ways is AI transforming traditional business functions such as customer service, marketing, supply chain management, and finance?
Yeah, so, I mean, everybody has probably experienced this just in their day-to-day life. We talked about some, brief examples of how things apply to the everyday person. In business, I definitely think that there's some really good real-world applications and examples that I can talk about. When it comes to things like supply chain management, for those of you who maybe have either worked in a business or own a business that produces some product, and you rely on raw materials in order to, manufacture something or change it into something else, or maybe you're, packaging things into a kit and then shipping it out. There's really good software out there that uses AI in order to help you manage your supply chain. And it does it by looking at two things. One is that it's looking at historical information about how long did it take for you to receive purchase order A to the time that it became, got into your warehouse. That's number one. Number two is it's also looking at what is your sales history look like and what is your sales future projection looking like. So how, are you, based on what your sales are looking like and how long it takes you to receive new inventory coming in or raw materials in order to produce inventory, it can help you calculate what is the lead time or at what point does bucket A fall below a certain threshold that you need to then, turn around and place a new order to order more materials and supplies. So that can really help you manage that. That's definitely one. In terms of customer service, how many of you have visited a website and a little pop-up says, "Hi, thanks for visiting. How can I help you?" That's pretty much like commonplace now. If you don't have that on your website, then you're pretty much dinosaur, right? So you have someone there that's right there in real time that can answer questions, and most of the time, 9 times out of 10, it's a bot, or it could be a real person, and when you join, it's gonna ping someone at a desk saying like so and so is on your website. But for the most part, you can ask it general questions, and it's going to be able to respond based on a series of frequently asked questions. So that's just another example, and it's really efficient. Why is it important? It's important for especially small business owners because they have limited resources, right? So there's only so many hours in the day, there's only so many things you can do, and most of the time as a small business owner, what you're doing is you're wearing every single hat that there is. You're the IT person, you're the marketing person, you're the billing person, you're this, you're that, right? Now, take all of that, and then me, for someone who's, a financial services company, I was also that for literally 200 customers as well, right? So how do you find and use and leverage tools in order to get some of those tasks done without having to, invest in, real people when you're not really at that stage yet to manage those processes for you? Well, this gives you more runway, right? It allows for you to extend the life of the time that you don't need to hire someone in that position, and you can still get the same work done for a lot less cost. So this is like another example. And most of the services firms that you see, the outsourcing companies, they are just really good at leveraging this type of technology. So they are then able to turn around and sell it to you because now they're saying like, hey, don't worry, because we know how to use this. And that's the other thing that I wanted to kind of talk about just really briefly is there's so many software companies out there that are selling you on the idea that everything is easy because of their product, right? QuickBooks Online is the best example of that, right? We use it every day. Every single one of our clients is in QBO. They are literally marketing to small business owners on the daily. You can turn on the TV and I guarantee you there's going to be an Intuit commercial right there saying like, we're with small business and we're going to make it easy. If you don't understand accounting and you don't know what you're doing, then it's a useless tool because you're not going to be able to leverage it to the point where it's actually going to do anything for you. So yes, it's a very powerful tool. Yes, it has AI. Yes, it has automation. Yes, it has all of those things. But if the person who's driving doesn't know how to drive, then it's not going to take you anywhere, right? And I think that that's really become a real big problem with a lot of the SaaS companies out there marketing themselves as this, end-all be-all solution for every problem out there, when in reality, most of the time the programs themselves and the developers behind them don't understand their real-world practical use for the technology, and now you've created an entirely different industry of professionals who now are going to help people leverage and utilize the software that's super powerful. Another great example of that, for those of you who are in sales or doing marketing, Salesforce. There's all kinds of conferences, there's special consultants that are just solely dedicated to the use of this software technology that's supposed to make marketing easy and sales easy. And it's actually probably one of the most complex softwares on the market. It's super powerful, but if you don't know what you're doing, it's like throwing money down the toilet. So that's my 2 cents. And this came up recently, which is why I'm so like hot on the topic. But anyway, I'll let it go to this guy.
I love it. I love the passion. You're making me think, especially because I'm here in San Francisco. You know, we talk a bit about who made the money during the gold rush. It was those who were selling, you know, the pickaxes and all of the equipment and sort of everything to be able to actually go, you know, do the, you know, get the gold. And you know, there is this concept of AI ops as well, right? Like all of these companies have an opportunity, you know, to, or do you in the room there have opportunities to really leverage, understand, sort of learn about things, and what's the limit of that, you know, investment that you want to make? Because you know, there are so many things out there. It's easy to think about boiling the ocean, right? So we talked a bit about customer, you know, service and AIs and automating different routines and things for you. Does something like that as a tool or as an assistant help your business and improve your business strategy? If it does, yeah, that may be something to take a look at. You know, if you're looking at the, you know, supply chain AIs and things of that sort, is that something that will be useful in helping to optimize your inventory levels or help you to predict demand and do those things? Depends on how many customers you have, depends on the ways, you know, do you need to go with the big, you know, Amazon or IBM type of, you know, operational AI, or are there smaller versions that you might consider? Looking at the financial AIs, you know, automating repetitive tasks and detecting fraud and other things like that, you know, is that something that would benefit your business? Are some of those financial, you know, elements going to add value and going to make things, you know, more efficient, more effective, and have greater impact for your customers? You know, and the one that I specifically wanted to talk about was thinking around marketing AIs and how do you know, analyze just the wealth of data you have? How do you identify patterns? You know, and as a data scientist, I'm really curious about how we can predict consumer behavior and how we can, you know, create things that in a way and message them and put them into places where people will see them and use them. So I wanted to share one example with you. There's an initiative that we did with Cadbury in India, and they were really sort of focused on the fact that so many small businesses there were really struggling after the pandemic to get back on their feet. So what Cadbury did is they took one of the most famous Bollywood stars, Shah Rukh Khan. Some of you may have heard of him or seen him on television, and they worked with him to basically allow an AI to take his voice and his image, and then local small brands were able to use that as part of their activation, their promotion, their advertising, and over 130,000 ads were created, you know, with this hyper local thing. So the AI was really facilitating, you know, the kind of social impacts they were looking to have, and certainly elevated the Cadbury brand, but was facilitating, you know, a real need that people had at the grassroots level in small stores in different areas of India. So if you want to look it up, you can, you know, it's what's it called? It's Shah Rukh Khan or Shah Rukh Khan My Ad, I think is what it's called, because we can maybe put it in the chat for folks too. But it's an example of the power of these technologies to really enable things, but it does get back down to what is your business strategy. Don't just adopt one because it's the new fad and all of your competitors are doing it. You know, maybe that gives you a signal that it's something to look at or something to examine. But there are so many options out there. It really gets back to some of those foundational basics for business in general, right? So what are my goals? What am I trying to accomplish? Who are my target audiences? You know, what are the tools I have? Who are the personnel I have? And then how am I going to use that to really enhance what your strategies are? So we could probably have a whole session just on that topic. So we'll turn it back to the next question.
Sure.
So
just to kind of segue, just what's interesting is one of the things that were in the comments was mentioning how AI is something that we need to hop on. So I guess it seems like there's a duality between the idea that AI was supposed to be a replacement theory, taking away jobs, but hearing you speak about it, there's also an opportunity for growth as well. And just to echo what you said earlier, as well as the comment, it's just something that we need to kind of hop on and get on board with. So I guess one thing that we can probably talk about as well later is what are the opportunities that people have to really learn what AI is that can affect everyone positively and not just fear it. I'm so scared of it, by the way. So. Okay, so our next question. What are some ethical concerns related to AI in business, and how can companies ensure responsibility and transparent AI usage?
Well, I think definitely probably Sky would be better able to answer this than I can. However, and I'll probably just start the conversation by saying that there's definitely innate bias in, algorithms, and there are definitely consequences to what AI is doing that is unforeseen. And, it requires a lot of monitoring. It requires a lot of, assessment, because it's using, number one, it's using data and it's using private information most of the time in order to get to the ends. There's probably a risk for plagiarism in some of the things that it produces because it's pulling from data all over the internet. And it's kind of like a black box where you really don't know, no one really knows exactly what it's going to do, especially once it's kind of off running on its own. And so it really does need to be monitored and watched. And I think, to kind of, there's always a risk when people don't understand something, even the smartest people, what it's going to do in the long run. And I think a really good example of that is a financial instrument that caused major financial meltdown, which was derivatives. No one understood the derivatives market. They did a whole bunch of things. They packaged up all of these bad mortgages, and then we had the 2008 financial crisis. Okay, that's like a prime example of something that, everybody ran with. They thought it was a great way to make money. It was this great financial instrument, and then turns out it wasn't. And it was really like there was just a lack of understanding of what it was, even at the highest levels of, our financial system and government. So it's like another example. Even the smartest programmers, even the people that are developing and creating the AI, once it's up and running, once it's going, it does have a life of its own. And the master is or the creator is no longer the master, and that's a real problem because especially with bias, in AI, and I'm sure that Sky can probably get into this a lot more. I think that it's a risk to a lot of businesses that if they're implementing something that's going to alienate a certain segment of the population, or can make them look like they're playing to something that is not necessarily the most flattering in terms of like what you would want to be brought to attention in your business, that could definitely be a problem. So it's going to let you go more into this.
Yeah, those are all such great points. I think I boil it down, at least in terms of the ethical concerns, into sort of the 5 areas we think about. So it's data privacy and security, bias and discrimination, transparency and explainability, that's sort of a black box, experience that happens. Job displacement is another thing to think about, and that's come up on our chat a little bit. And then accountability and liability. So those are sort of the key 5 areas that I think about when exploring these different questions around ethical concerns in AI in business. For data privacy and security, we've talked a lot about the sort of sensitive information that's up there. The way that you can inoculate yourself against sort of the risks around that are really having robust data protection measures, or working with companies that have that expressed and that you really understand that. So, staying current comment on the latest regulations as a part of that. We know, for instance, in our government work, the regulations and requirements around use of AI are changing and shifting, and we're expecting guidelines to be coming out around that hopefully soon. And it's also important when you're thinking about data privacy and security to be transparent about what your policies are around data collection, storage, and use. Those are things that it's not just enough to talk about that and put that in your terms of services. You need to make sure that your systems actually follow through on doing that. So there may be other tests and things you can do in that area. So those are kind of the highlights on data privacy and security. For bias and discrimination, we have unfortunately a lot of examples where the sort of biased data that we're feeding a lot of our AI systems is being reflected in the output and in the results that we get. So there have been financial models that have discriminated against people based on the race or their sex. There are examples where some of the AI tools being used for hiring, some of the lighting or other things were different, so they were discriminating against people of darker complexion. There are other photography tools in that won't read people of darker complexions. There are all kinds of other biases we see just in terms of how things are worded and phrased. And that means that we need to pay good attention towards the data that we're training our models on. And what are the ways that we can identify and understand and use that? There were a group of us that did a whole 2-hour talk on sort of data and bias and sort of some of the different types of cognitive biases to interpret. So we won't go down that rabbit hole. But the goal here is, you have a diverse and representative working on these tools. If you have good training data that you're using that is representative, if you're applying fairness metrics, and if you're actually auditing some of the things that you're doing, that can help to decrease some of the biases that we see in AI. I'll give you another example. I was talking with a startup that helps to train autonomous vehicles. And we were talking about what is the shape of a human and how they have to train the AIs on people with different levels of mobility. So maybe in a wheelchair or walking with a cane or had a carriage in front of them. And then I brought up the discussion, that there are people that are now wearing outfits and masks and other things to help disrupt so cameras can't visually recognize them. And what happens then with our autonomous vehicles? How do we make sure we're training AI for some of those new technologies and moving figures humans have to make sure that we're accounting for that? Around transparency and explainability, Giuseppe, you were talking about that black box, right? That's a really, really big issue. And that lack of transparency absolutely leads to mistrust, skepticism, and people sort of questioning the results that they get. I don't know about you all, but the fact that ChatGPT is a little bit of a black box and can't tell me where they're sourcing and citing things from, for me, makes me question anything that I might read from that. And I will sort of temper or go back and reassess and look for additional sources for things like that to just make sure that I'm, kind of breaking out of that black box experience. So, by having AI models and our company, WPP, and we are doing this, looking at the AI models or tools that we might use as a part of our business, that's one of the questions you ask is, to what degree is the technology explainable? It gives me insights, it gives me a window into how it's arriving at those results. Because the nature of the work we do and our clients and sort of trust that we need to have, we need to be certain of that and understand how that transpires. Job displacement is a big one. We have a whole conference
That sounds good.
Okay, guys, so we're going into our last question of the evening. As mentioned, we will have a Q&A after, so with all of this great information is going to offer a lot of conversation and questions. So the last question for you both, what advice would you give a business leader who are considering implementing AI solutions in your organizations?
Okay, so my thoughts on implementing AI in your business organization is to first identify where you want to take it and how you want to use it, but make sure that it's part of an overall strategy. So I think a lot of times people jump into it because it's bad, like we talked about. It's like, oh, everybody's doing it, so I have to do it. You need to be very thoughtful anytime you implement anything in your business, especially something that can kind of take on a life of its own. If it's implemented smartly, then it can be a very powerful way to grow your business. If it's not, then guess what? It's going to have terrible results and it's going to be a complete waste of time. So I would say sit there and think about exactly how it is that you want to roll it out. Don't just pull the trigger and whatever the particular aspect of your company that you want to roll this piece of technology into, don't just let it loose immediately, right? Phase it in, test things out, trial and error works best. That's usually the case in anything that you're doing in your business, making sure that there's a process working, making sure that you're testing, and making sure that you're following through on whatever it is that you decided that you were going to implement. Remember, you have one opportunity in order to make a first impression in business. And when you're rolling out a new piece of technology, so for example, I worked at a major healthcare center for years before I started this company. We implemented a patient portal where people could go online and they could access their health records, they could download things, and the IT department totally botched the rollout. Well, guess what? Nobody used it, right? Why? Because the first time that it was rolled out, it failed, everyone had a miserable experience, and it was like, I'm never touching that again, right? So that's just like one example of how wrong and sideways things can go. So that's why it needs to be well thought out, it needs to be tested, and it needs to be followed through on. And you need to make sure that your staff is properly trained, that you're properly trained, that you know what you're doing with it before you start, rolling it out to your customers who might lose faith in you if you roll out a piece of technology or AI that fails miserably, which is more than likely to happen because that's, the life of a business owner. Everything fails. Okay. Scott, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with all of those. What you're seeing on the screen is just, the synopsis we pulled together, right? So identifying that right use case or cases, starting small and scaling up, right? And that really, is about the proof of concept. You might even be trying things internally first before you're rolling them out. Investing in data quality and management is a huge one. We often say, ship data in, ship data out. So if you, this is an area that actually spends time, and if you're going to spend some money, this would be, one of the areas to invest in. You really want to make sure that you're approaching this in a high quality, sort of well-structured way, and that you're thinking ahead about what are the ways we're going to, manage it, all of that. Hit on number 4, which is that helps across a number of different factors here. And then finally, the ensuring ethical AI business practices, that's just being mindful of the bias inherent in AI models and taking that into account as you move forward. So I'll stop there because I really want to get to questions.
Yeah, and we will go ahead and open the floor for any questions, either online or in the audience. I think I definitely just wanted to kind of follow up and say too that this is totally applicable to so many different aspects of your business. So if you have the ability to, I would definitely take a picture of that and remember it, because it's not just for AI, it's really for everything. I can give an example too of one thing that I wanted to say was that I have an example of, we were talking about using AI as an assistant. One of my clients is a retailer, and we were talking just today about the fact that part of the selling of his salespeople is that they have to reach out to their customers regularly, and they call them, they text them on their cell phones. And one of the things that we have at Tentho is we have a CRM, which is linked to our telephones, our Ring Central app. And every time someone makes a phone call, anytime someone texts us to our office phone number, it's recorded automatically in the CRM. So it keeps track of that. You can type notes onto the phone call itself, so we know exactly when the phone call took place. And I asked him, I said, look, this is what we do. I was like, because you have all of these salespeople that are on the phone all day long, right? Or texting people, having conversations with customers, building relationships. What happens when they leave? It leaves with their personal cell phone. It's gone. The company doesn't own it. You don't even know that person existed. You don't know what they were ever told. So it's like another example of, literally a secretary that's right there that's just doing it behind the scenes without even thinking about it. Yeah, we have a question here. Go ahead. Okay, so for everybody online, the question is, we're talking about transparency, and is it something that we should be advertising that we're using these type of tools to our customers? Or is it something that we should not be advertising, right? Well, I'll give my opinion about that. My opinion of that is that whether or not you're advertising it to them, chances are, especially right now, most of the time they're going to be able to recognize that it is AI. I don't really think that anybody is in any way obligated to tell anyone, but if you're going to be using it and not using it well, then it's probably something that you should disclose, because otherwise it's going to make you look really bad when they think that you're just, behind the scenes being a mere coworker and you're not. I think transparency in business is 100% important all of the time. That's my own personal opinion, but I know that doesn't apply to everyone. I can think of a non-AI related example of how things can backfire, but I think everybody kind of has probably spoken to someone on the phone at a call center, and their name is John, but they have a very strong accent and they're clearly not John Smith from Alabama, right? So that's an example of someone's trying to basically lie to your face, and that they're not in the States. Or you call this call center. I used to live in Australia, and we used to call, and people would have Australian accents, but we knew that they were in the Philippines or wherever. And the company wasn't being transparent like that, but companies are very transparent in letting you know when you're calling someone or talking to someone in the States. They usually say hi, I'm so-and-so in Indianapolis, right? They actually want to fully disclose that they're in the United States. That's a really great example of it. There was an accounting firm that it was a tech-enabled firm, just like Tentho. They were using third-party technology in order to do their work, but they also had their own proprietary software that was working behind the scenes. And they were telling everyone that they had this AI that was doing all this accounting work, and that it was automated, whatever. Same size as us. Their valuation was $100 million. I mean, just ridiculous. We knew that they weren't making that much more money than us. They might have been double our gross revenue. They flopped in a big way because it all came out that their automation didn't work, and that the work was getting done by someone in the Philippines. And they hired a bunch of people through this outsourcing company called TOA, the outsourcing accountant, which is based in the Philippines, and those were the ones that were actually doing the work. And they had to give back their investor money, and it was very dramatic, and then our competition pilot and us, like everybody started advertising to their clients, say like, oh yeah, they sucks, come and work with us. But it's an example of how not being transparent can backfire, or even being worse and actually misleading people. Sky, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was sharing this in the chat. In our industry, we actually pushed forward or tried to promote an AI Accountability Act, where ads and marketing and other resources are actually labeled if they are using AI as a part of trying to be transparent and ethical and sort of visible about their use, especially around AI influencers and in other areas where it will increasingly get more and more difficult for people to be able to tell the difference. And then I shared another example of where I was working with a financial planner at a large organization, and they asked if I wanted the AI-powered approach or if I wanted the human-powered approach, and I chose the AI-powered approach. So I thought that was great though, that they were being very transparent about their use of how their models and things like that.
Cool. Do we have any questions here or online? Any online questions? We have a question here. Go ahead.
Before I get into the question, Sky mentioned this one thing. She said that sometimes, because ChatGPT is kind of like a black box, something like that. And I agree with that. Sometimes I do second question what the answer ChatGPT gives me. Like it was one time I woke up, took a piss, right, and like my genitals were just really burning, and I told ChatGPT my symptoms. They said, "Oh, don't worry, it's probably UTI, just whatever." So I didn't worry. Then later I find out I have gonorrhea. So that I understand what you mean with ChatGPT, because sometimes it can give you the wrong answers. So, but my main question is basically on the collecting data part, because right now I have the company's a startup. We burnt like through like maybe 50,000 so far. But it's my dad's money, so it doesn't really matter. But
Probably matters to him.
but look, every company burns money, right?
Yeah, they do.
So basically, this just to give you some background on the company, it started when my girlfriend broke up with me about like 6 months ago. I was really lonely. I was like I was sexting, which is ChatGPT a little bit, and ChatGPT was giving me answers that this is inappropriate talk, we can't talk about this, whatever. So I took it upon myself to make my own AI chatbot where, for lonely men, they can go ahead and talk to them. And
That's the company.
that's the company, yes. And then soon we're going to link it with a sex doll so that the sex doll can ultimately speak as the AI chatbot. And it's $1 billion idea, I think. But with the collecting data part, right now we're collecting data. Like I've traveled a lot, stayed in a lot of different hotel rooms. Right now we're collecting data. Before I check out the room, I kind of like stick a mic in there,